Okay, my name is Emma Holdway. I am the administrative assistant at the Nevada Northern Railway. We are located in Ely, Nevada. Right now we are at the East Ely Depot. Our story starts right here. The depot was built in 1907. The railroad began in Curry, Nevada, about 130 miles north of here, and they didn't complete construction until 1907.
Because of the backlight here. That's okay. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So they didn't finish the completion of the railroad until 1907. It was September 26th because San Francisco had their massive earthquake in 1906, and we had a very harsh winter that prevented them from finishing the railroad. So here we are now. We're still here over 100 years later. It's our 120th anniversary next year. So we're very excited. This year, ending this month, is ending our 40th anniversary of being a museum, which is pretty exciting as well. The depot here was built in 1907. The material it was built by is sandstone made out of, that came locally. Since we are such a rural area, locally kind of means as close as you can get it. It doesn't necessarily mean it came right from here. So it did come quite a ways before it made its official trip here, but this is where it landed. Upstairs is where all the office buildings are, and later they constructed the transportation building, which was built in 1917, and it's the building right behind me right there. So now this is where our president, the roadmaster, the superintendent, and our chief dispatcher, all their offices are up there. In the downstairs portion, the front end, was the hospital for the railroad at one point. We had our very own hospital on site. And then the back portion with no windows, so you can kind of tell, that's where our vault is. So that's where all of our archival records sit. And we are working very hard, and we just closed a grant to be able to finish that project and keep our history alive.
Excellent.
On the side of the building, we have the railings, and there's spikes on the railings. And people sometimes think, maybe it was skateboarders, but it wasn't. We don't actually have a record of why the spikes are here. Our best guess is they were put up in the 1930s during the Great Depression, because if you look close, you can see on the joints there's cracks starting to form in the sandstone. Sandstone is naturally a very soft rock, and so people sitting on the railing and putting too much pressure will damage the sandstone, especially since we are in a climate where we do get some moisture, which is surprising because we're in the desert, but I like to remind everyone we're in the high desert. We're at 6,500 feet, so we do get rain and snow. In fact, right now it's like 45 degrees outside.
It's chilly.
So, but the railings were put up in such a way that if you're tall, unlike me, you can lean against it pretty comfortably, but you don't want to sit on it.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
The cars right over here, the cars were built in 1929 in Illinois. Railroads are kind of funny with how they get their equipment to and from different locations. It's just really interesting. And then we have an extra car. You can't really see it from here, but there's an extra car down there, and it's actually our Canadian first class car. So it's a treat to be able to have some pretty interesting equipment.
Yeah, nice.
All right, we'll head down this way a bit. Find some sun to stand in.
So imagine being this high elevation, you guys do get some snow in this area?
We do. The amount of snow reflects on how much rain we've gotten. It rained quite a bit in the early year, and it rained a little bit in May, but from May to September we had no rain. September was our last rainfall, and it was only 0.84 inches.
Huh.
So not too much, but enough so we hopefully get some snow this year.
Okay.
It's hard because we are a desert, so if we don't get a lot of rain, that tells us we won't get a whole lot of snow. But it all just depends, because we've gotten snow on the 4th of July before.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Our motto here is just, you can see it, there's not a cloud in the sky right now.
Right.
20 minutes later it could be raining with no clouds. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It's pretty interesting. It's
Yeah,
a
it
weird
is.
little place. So here we are at Dirt's memorial. Dirt was our world famous cat. On the top it says that darn cat. He was 16 when he passed in January of 23. This is where he's buried, and we have a bronze statue in hopes people will pet him and he'll start to shine.
I like cats, so I don't mind petting the cat.
So this is exactly where he's buried, and we picked this spot because his favorite activity was to watch over the yard.
Okay.
And so that's why we picked this spot, so he can forever watch over the yard. Okay, we'll come down just slightly. All right, so we're gonna focus on the coaling tower and the water tower right here. The coaling tower is non-operational now. We are working hard to try to get it to that point again, but you can see there the wooden portion of the coaling tower. That's where all the coal was held, and there actually had to be somebody up there to push the coal down. It wasn't automatic.
Wow.
And then the water tower, if we come over here just a little bit, kind of at an angle, you can see a little red shack right in front of it.
Oh.
And that little red shack is the pump house for it. The water tower wasn't favored to use when getting water because it connected directly to the city lines, and if the water got contaminated there, then it would contaminate the entire city. So instead, that's when we got the water spouts right here. This is the only one that works right now, but there are multiple throughout the yard that we have.
Now you do have steam engine. Is it coal fired?
Yes.
And so you have to load it by hand, I guess?
So we have a pit that we have just a little loading dock, and we just use the backhoe to fill the tender.
Oh, okay.
But when we are in the locomotive, it is all hand shoveled.
Okay.
And we'll get into that when we get down to the shop.
Okay.
Hi.
Now, one thing that's unusual about this museum that I haven't seen in any other museum across the country I've been to is that you offer rides inside the locomotives, or you can actually run the throttle, the brake.
Yeah, so that's part of our Be the Engineer system. It's a program that we started because we wanted it to be a different experience. We're also one of the only railroad museums that lets you walk in through our active shop, which is really a joy too.
Yeah.
We do almost everything we can here. There's a few things like when we need repairs on the wheels, then they go out of town, but we do most of our own machining and all of our part making and stuff, so it just depends on the severity. But the Be the Engineer program, it's just a magical thing, and we were featured on The Big Bang Theory because that's something Sheldon always wanted to do, and so our brochure was actually in part of the show. It was pretty cool.
That's it. I know. Okay, I don't remember seeing that. I
Yeah.
watched the show, but I don't remember seeing that. I'll have to look for it.
It was a present to Sheldon from the other two, and he was very happy about it. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to be a little different, you know? It's a lifelong dream for a lot of people, so why not make it happen? And the only thing you have to have is a valid driver's license.
Oh.
You take an open book test, one of our engineers goes with you, and it's your hand on the throttle.
Wow.
And we also do it with our 1956 Chiefman Pontiac, which is really cool. So it's a high rail car, but it's a classic car too. So it's really amazing.
Huh.
And we have a lock that goes on the steering wheel because you can't steer on the tracks.
Exactly.
We do it for steam, diesel. When we get our Doodlebug fixed, we will also offer it for the Doodlebug as well.
Very cool.
Yeah. We're gonna walk down a little further. This is a good spot right here.
Okay.
So if you look all the way out, do you see the trees kind of right behind that pole line?
Yes.
In the very, very far distant, that is McGill. McGill is where the mill and smelter was.
Okay.
So right here, it's really hard to tell. It's pretty much just behind the boxcars and stuff right here. But that's where the golf course is. And the golf course is where the mill and smelter was originally intended to be built because of its water source. There was a family, they were named the Guggenheims. They're very notorious in history. But the Guggenheim family said, you can't build right here. You don't want to. There's not enough water. You want to go out and talk to William McGill. He has a bunch of land. He'll sell it to you, and they have great water. So Kennicott said, okay, we'll go out there. We'll go check it out. Well, they got the land, but McGill doesn't have their own water. It comes from a duct behind the mountain range from a creek called Duck Creek. And that's the only way McGill gets any of its water. So it was great for us, for Ely, the city of Ely, because then we still had water. But McGill, like I said, they don't have water, and it just ended up working better. So, yeah. All right, we'll come down here just a little bit further.
This looks like on the left here, this is the freight house where...
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
I like to get out of the walkway before we start with more of the history on it.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna snake left just a little bit. Okay, so we are now in the open area of the freight barn. We just passed quite a few doors. And so the freight barn was for all the stuff that came into town, for all the department stores, the lumber store, the hardware store, the grocery store, all that fun stuff. So the doors were for the department stores. At one point in time, there was a J.C. Penney's. So if, they had a shipment that came in and they couldn't get it right away, it would go in one of those storage areas. We have a track right here. It's called the team track, and it doesn't look like it's super close to this building, but when the car is here, you have less than a foot of space in between. This wide area right here was used so if stuff needed to go right away, like for example the grocery store, you don't want the groceries sitting for a long time. So they'd go from the car onto a dolly straight over to the automobiles to be dispersed wherever they needed to go in town. And then right across from us is this long tin building. It was an open air shop and it was converted in 1941. It's called the RIP. RIP. It stands for Repair in Place, not Rest in Peace. This is where all the freight cars and the passenger cars would go to get their services done, whereas the machine shop and engine house was strictly for the locomotives only. The RIP does have its very own overhead crane. At one point it did have its own blacksmith shop as well, so they had everything they needed to repair the cars right in the building. Now it just holds our historic passenger cars. We have Coach 5 and Outfit Car 06 that are stored in there. Coach 5 was built in 1882. It is a Pullman car, and it was converted into a passenger car. And it is the original car to our railroad. And it was pulled by Locomotive 40 for passenger services to get from here to Curry. The Steptoe Valley Flyer hauled about 4 million people. Over the years it was running, so it's pretty magical.
So they don't do any restoration work here?
We do some.
Because I noticed the wooden box cars, one looks like it's been restored and the other one not.
So that one, it was just painted, so the inside of the car is still in good shape. Okay. But the paint that they used, it was lead paint, and so the hope was that it didn't lose the color. I don't remember exactly the specific type of paint, but the type of paint it just oxidizes really fast. And all they do is sit here in the sun, so they're going to lose their color really fast. So the reason that one is painted and the rest are not is because we're trying to find an exact paint match that won't lose its color. It won't fade in the sun. And so it really just depends on what you're looking at, because, yeah, I mean, sure, it sounds easy enough, right? But we're a National Historic Landmark, and that means that if we to restore any of the equipment that's on the railroad, it would have to be the exact same as it was at one point. So with all of our locomotives, if we were to repaint one of the locomotives, it has to be one of the original paint schemes, and we have to show proof that it's one of the original paint schemes. We can't just come up with our own. The only one we could do is locomotive 250, and we'll talk about her when we get in there.
Okay.
But I want to focus on these box cars right here. If you look at 1068 right there, you can see some patches on the side. Just some metal patches. They're not really flush with the rest of the car. Do you know what a torpedo is?
That's the a wooden cork that you put into an air hose to stop from leaking. Oh,
no.
A flare.
Kind of. A torpedo is an eighth of a stick of dynamite.
Okay.
And so they would originally put it on the track. Say you have two trains going at once. They're going the same direction, so it was fine. But something happened. The first crew noticed that there's something to be aware of. So they'd stop, they'd place a torpedo, and they'd go on their way. The next train that was coming, they would run over the torpedo, and it just makes a really loud, almost gunshot-like sound.
Okay.
It doesn't do any damage to the rail, it doesn't do any damage to the track, it just makes a loud noise, and it was to alert everybody, hey, be on the lookout, there's something you need to watch for.
Okay.
But with the cars, they used the torpedoes to break up the ore that was too big to just come out of it. At the smelter, there was this giant squeeze that would squeeze the cars, pick them up, and turn them. The smelter did have a fire, and it completely burned, and they rebuilt it. And I think it was at that point when they had to use the torpedoes because they lost that squeeze. So they just had to dump, and if it was too big to fit, they had to blow it, and it would oftentimes cause holes in the side. And you can see we have two different boxcars here. We have the one that has pretty much nothing at the bottom, and then we have 400 right here, and there's two little things that come out kind of like a V almost.
Right.
Those drop straight from the bottom, whereas the other one you have to tip it. And then this car right here, 134, this is what we call a ballast car. So ballast is needed, so the rock next to the rail has somewhere to drain from, because if you don't have, and a leveling ground too, you want your track level, but you also want to make sure that water can drain through it and not under it. Otherwise you're going to have a whole other set of issues.
Okay.
All right, we are going to make our way to the shop. Get in the sun.
Yeah, that is interesting that you allow people to walk through your shops, because again, every place else I've been to does not allow you to do that.
We believe that our history is too important to not share with the world. It's also, there's so much history, and many people don't realize how these things work. So it's just kind of one of those things, if you don't know, you want to know. That's just human nature, right? You want to understand how everything works.
Sure.
So what's a better spot to see how it works than in the shop where they're fixing it? Not only that, but part of our motto is to teach the younger generation. Keep the younger generation in the loop. So our youngest volunteer, he's 15, his name is Jack. He is down in the shop as often as he can. He's homeschooled, so he has a little bit more of a flexible schedule, but all he does is hang out down here and help with whatever needs to be helped with. So it is very interesting, and we're very lucky to be able to allow people to do so.
How many volunteers do you have?
Over 150. There's all sorts of different things you can do to be a volunteer. We have transcribers for our archive records. A lot of the records are written in Old English, and it's all in cursive. And their cursive is really neat, but sometimes it's really hard to read at the same time. And they didn't use proper English because it didn't exist yet. And so kind of what they're saying is just a bunch of nonsense. So we have transcribers, and they can do whatever the project they're working on from home. They don't even have to be here in person. So it really just depends on what you want to do. We have volunteers that come down and work in the shop. We have a few that come and work in the office. A lot of them come and just do train service. All they do is they're engineers, brakemen, conductors, whatever they want to do, we try to make it happen.
Okay. Is it all volunteer, or are there paid employees
There's
as well?
paid employees. So our gift shop staff, our administrative staff, and most of our shop staff is all paid. But I want to say there's about 30 of us paid, and like I said, over 150 volunteers. So it really just depends on what it is you want to do.
Okay.
So this long building right here with all the windows on it, that's the paint shop. The paint shop was used for the locomotives and all the passenger cars, and this is where they all got painted.
Looks like they're moving the steam engine.
Yes, 81. They are doing some work on her right now. Hopefully they'll be done by the time we go in there, so it's nice and quiet. No guarantees though.
Now, is that the engine that you normally use for the excursion train?
So we have three. I'll get in a little more into detail when we get down there.
Okay.
They're all getting repairs right now though, so it just depends on who's running and when. So we had 93 up and running, and she decided she didn't want to run anymore, and 81 was next on the list, and it turns out that 81 needs the less amount of repairs. So we're trying to really work hard on getting her done and ready to be out on the line again.
Okay. How long have you been doing this? Because you are definitely very knowledgeable.
I've been here in total about 6 years.
Okay.
I started as a volunteer when I was only 15. My best friend, her mom is our superintendent, and I would come and I'd help with the Christmas trains. I'd come help on Halloween. I would help Cherish. I'd help her with all the janitorial work, because that's what her position was at the time, and I just help wherever it was needed. There's one time we polished locomotive 93. It was pretty fun. But employed, this December will be 3 years I've been employed. Okay. 2 of which I've been our president's assistant. But I love history, and we're in such a small town that it really is important. Of course, the mine is our main source of income here, but without the railroad here, there'd be no tourists, so we wouldn't have any money. Sure, there'd be some money coming in because of the mine, but the majority of where the city gets its money from is from the hotels, room tax, and from people coming to visit us. So I find it very interesting that we're not taught about this railroad in school, because local history is just as important as all the other history you learn. So I just find it very interesting. My great-grandpa was in World War II. My papa was in the Korean War. I love history, and this is a great spot for it. We learn something new every day here. It's kind of just a joy to be down here.
You have that attitude. It's very good. I don't think there's many young people like yourself that have that same attitude.
Unfortunately not, but it's just one of those things where you have to have a knack for it, and a lot of people don't. I am of the generation where we're glued to our phones. I am guilty of it too. But that's just kind of how it is. But there's just not enough to be passionate about anymore. So when you really find something, you just want to share it. And that's really what I would like to do, is just share this. Because we went from these giant iron horses that could travel you hundreds of miles to electric cars that can't make it through a rainstorm. And they had just simple math and drawings to make these locomotives come to life. And I know it takes time to evolve, but I feel like we should be there already if this is what we started with. So I find it very interesting to learn how they used to live versus how we're living right now. It's great that I'm able to share their history and what they did, but can we go back? So I just think it's the coolest thing ever. Okay, we are going to look both ways before we cross the tracks, and we're going to step over the head of the rail each time we cross. All right, we do have one point of interest before we actually get inside the shop. But while we are in there, I want to warn you, it is an active shop. There are open pits, grease piles, grease traps, metal shavings, loud noises, all the above. If you can think of it, it's probably in here. So be aware of that. Watch behind you when you're walking, because if you fall in a pit, you have to clean it. It's their rules, not mine.
Okay.
All right, our first point of interest is this sign right here. It reads, "Notice, book agents, insurance agents, peddlers, ticket sellers, solicitors, politicians, positively prohibited from visiting the offices or shops of this company." They all wanted one thing in common. Can you guess what it was?
No.
Money.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So we had a job to get done as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So we were built with the intent of hauling copper ore along the railroad. And that's exactly what we did. From 1907 to 1978, we hauled over 4 billion pounds of copper along this railroad.
Wow.
And they're still going today.
Wow.
Okay, it is naturally lit in here. Give your eyes a second to adjust. I'll let you lead the way. If you want an aerial shot, I'd suggest coming up here.
Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good. I got some friends that are really going to enjoy seeing this.
Good. All right, so we are in the machine shop. So the shop was built in 1907. It was expanded in 1917 and finally rebuilt in 1941. If you look up above, you can see our overhead crane. This crane will go the entire length of the shop, and it has a capacity of 7 tons to it. The guys use it all the time, especially when we have to take the axles off of the locomotives. So this is locomotive 93 right here. Locomotive 93 was built in January 1909 by the American Locomotive Company. She's an ALCO. I'll be referring to ALCO a lot, so that's the American Locomotive Company. Number 93, she is nicknamed the Monster because she is not only the biggest, but she can haul the most as well. So when we're talking about steam locomotives, we go by tractive effort, how much they can haul versus horsepower. On a steam locomotive, you could calculate horsepower, but you're going to calculate your total horsepower. And it's a really long, confusing equation. And if you want it for the exact moment for how much you're hauling, it's always going to change because your pressure is always changing. So we go by tractive effort. 93's tractive effort is 39,000 pounds, or about 30 to 40 fully loaded ore cars. An ore car typically by itself only weighs 20 tons, and you fill it with 70 tons of ore. You get your 90 times 30 or 40. So locomotive 93, she is a 280, so that is her configuration. We call her a consolidation locomotive. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about her wheels. So right now she's technically a 260, so 2 pilot wheels, 1 on each side, and 8 driving wheels. Her rear driver is actually getting some repairs done. I think they just brought it back and we're just doing some final lookovers, making sure everything's good, doing some final repairs on the locomotive itself before we put the axle back on. When we take the axle off, we actually have what we call a drop pit. So we have these metal plates right here. They come up and the rail goes all the way across. So right here, there's a joint, and this joint will open up, and you can kind of tell right down there, the pit drops even further than just the 5 feet it is right now. And that is so we can have the giant jack underneath to lower the axle, bring it over, and use the crane to move it to where we need it. All right, let's take a look inside the cab. So like I said, since we are doing some repairs on the locomotives, they don't look entirely how they're supposed to. So locomotive 93, there's normally a floor right here. Don't be shocked. So this pedal right here is what opens the firebox doors. So we can look at number 81 over here. You can see the doors are propped up. These are called butterfly doors.
It's kind of dark, but I think I can see it.
Okay. If not, I can do a little demonstration.
That's okay.
Okay. So we'll look back at 93 again. You can see on 81 she does have a floor, so it comes up to right about here. This pedal, the fireman steps on it. So in railroading you hear either fireman or head brakeman. It really depends on which type of locomotive you're taking. On a steam engine, it is the fireman because they control the fire. On the diesels, it's the head brakeman because they're just another brakeman keeping an eye out on the track. So the right side is the engineer side, the left side is the fireman side. So the tender comes, and when the tender's here, there's only about this much room in between the tender and the cab. And that's why we have these curtains pretty much to block out the extra. So on the fireman's side, I'll have you back up a little bit so we can do a little demonstration.
Okay.
So being a fireman, I'm right-handed, so it would be very easy for me to be a fireman, but somebody who's left-handed, they're not going to have a very good time. So we have our pedal here. I'm on the side of the locomotive I'm supposed to be on. I have my shovel. I'm picking up my coal from the tender that's right behind me. I twist it around, I come back, I step on my pedal, and I throw my coal into the firebox. And you do that all the way up the hill, 1.5 tons, hand shoveled.
In how short of a period of time?
So that our trips up the hill and back is about an hour and a half.
Okay.
So it just depends on what point. So you don't have to do it the entire time, but your total amount is 1.5 tons of coal. And it's just where you have cold spots, because you don't want cold spots, you have to keep your fire up so you have enough pressure to make the steam to be able to go. So it really just depends on, like if we're going uphill, you're going to need a whole lot more fire to make a lot more steam because you are climbing. Coming back down the hill, not so much because you kind of just let gravity do the work for you. So looking at 93, on the engineer side, we have this long handle that comes at an angle. That's our throttle.
I don't think I've seen a throttle like that before.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay.
All right, we'll talk about 81 since she's in here. So 93 is the eldest of the 3 steams. 81 right here is actually the youngest. We'll get to the middle child, number 40, in a minute. And when you hear me say middle child, that often means she's not the favorite, but she is, and I'll explain why in a bit. Locomotive number 81, she was built in 1917 by Baldwin Locomotive Works. She was built specifically for the Nevada Northern, and we're very lucky to still have her. She is the same configuration as 93, so 280 or a consolidation, but they were built by different people, so they perform differently. You and I can have the same type of car, right? We can have little blue sedans, but mine's going to perform better than yours because they're different brands. It just depends, right? Same type of thing with the locomotive. So they're the exact same type of engine, but she weighs less and she doesn't haul as much. 81 has a tractive effort of about 32 to 36,000 pounds. 93 weighs 93.5 tons. When you put her tender on, she is 110 tons. 81 right here, she is 89 tons. You put her tender on, I'd say she's about 95, 96 tons. So not very much. 81 is closest to being up and running again. She has a few issues with her pilot truck that we are in the middle of repairing right now. They're moving stuff out there.
What are they doing? What are they doing?
They have one of the
Oh,
axles.
the
Yeah.
they're bringing in now?
I don't know if it's the pilot truck. It probably is, though.
That's cool. We get to see some action going
Oh,
on.
yeah. I'm gonna go see if the cat is here.